My husband died in a car crash while trying to buy strawberries for me, leaving no intact body. At the funeral, I was overwhelmed with grief when a group of debt collectors suddenly burst in. Only then did I learn that my husband had millions in debt under his name. Filled with guilt, I tearfully agreed to take on the debt and vowed to fulfill my husband's filial duties. Afterwards, I first donated a kidney to my mother-in-law who had cancer. Then I sold my own house and car to help my husband repay part of his debts, to ensure my mother-in-law's happiness in her later years and to repay the remaining debts. I worked myself to the bone for over a decade until I was completely drained. But at the brink of my death, my supposedly deceased husband returned home with a beautiful woman. Only then did I realize that years ago, my husband had actually faked his death. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day my husband died in a car accident. 1. Darling, wait at home for a while, and you'll have the freshest strawberries this afternoon. This is why I love you. If it were someone else's husband, who would be this good? Strawberries are so expensive now. Many pregnant women crave them but can't bring themselves to buy them. My husband Chen Ziqiang had his back to me as he put on his shoes and spoke. Hearing this, I abruptly turned to look at the mirror beside me. The reflection showed someone healthy and youthful, nothing like the person who had been worn down for over a decade by creditors. Mother-in-law Fang Qingying and sister-in-law Chen Zihong. I took several deep breaths and accepted the fact that I had been reborn in my past life. Chen Ziqiang had also used buying strawberries as an excuse, showering me with moral guilt trips about how good and loving he was to me. Back then, I was foolish enough to be deeply moved. Little did I expect that instead of getting strawberries that afternoon, I received a call from the traffic police. Turns out, Chen Ziqiang had gotten into a car accident on the way. His vehicle lost control, plunged off a cliff, and exploded, leaving no remains behind. The police searched thoroughly but only found a little finger. At the funeral, the lawyer walked in, and I learned that I was actually Chen Ziqiang's sole heir. Thinking about how good Chen Ziqiang had been to me, I was overwhelmed with grief, almost wishing to follow Chen Ziqiang in death. But before I could do anything, numerous loan agencies rushed in demanding repayment. The total amount shockingly exceeded 10 million. As I hesitated, Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong pointed at me and shouted at the funeral, saying that if it weren't for my insistence on eating strawberries, Chen Ziqiang wouldn't have died. I became the villain, feeling deeply guilty. I agreed to repay Chen Ziqiang's debts and silently vowed to fulfill his filial duties in his stead, so I sold my premarital assets to settle part of the debt. But then Fang Qingying was diagnosed with kidney failure and needed a transplant to survive. 2. After testing, I happened to be a match. So I lay on the operating table again, donating a kidney with a heart full of atonement. The days that followed felt like living in a nightmare. The pressure of debt was suffocating. And Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong refused to work, relying on me to support them while constantly berating and hitting me. Whenever I failed to meet their demands, they would cry and say, "You killed Ziqiang, and now you want to drive us to death too." Over 10 years passed like this. By the time the debts were mostly repaid, I was already drained and nearing death. I wasn't afraid of death. Instead, I smiled, thinking that at least in the afterlife, I could face Chen Ziqiang without guilt. But before I could die, I saw Chen Ziqiang walk through the door, arm in arm with a beautiful woman, holding hands with a child who looked about 10 years old. As soon as she saw me clinging to life, the woman frowned at Chen Ziqiang. "Didn't you say you were dying? Why call me back before you're even dead? How unlucky." Chen Ziqiang looked at me impatiently, then turned to Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. "What's going on?" Fang Qingying sneers coldly. "She probably thinks she's something special. I specifically called you back to show her how stupid she's been all these years. How fun it is to crush her spirit." I moved my parched lips, but no words came out, only feeling a surge of blood rushing to my head before sinking into boundless darkness. I gathered my thoughts and smiled at Chen Ziqiang. "Yes, you're the best. Be careful on your way, and I'll wait for you to come home." After seeing Chen Ziqiang off, I immediately went downstairs and bought a lottery ticket for next week's draw at a shop not far away. The winning numbers of this lottery ticket coincidentally matched the date of my wedding anniversary with Chen Ziqiang. At that time, I had just learned about the debt, and the lottery results were being announced on TV, so I remembered it vividly. Perhaps this is what they call fate. Holding the lottery ticket results in my hand, I thought to myself, this time, not only will I break free from Chen Ziqiang and make the Chen family pay for what they did in my past life, but more importantly, I will live splendidly. 3. What happened next mirrored events from my previous life. I retrieved Chen Ziqiang's severed finger and held a funeral. The only difference was that last time, I was heartbroken and wept uncontrollably, but this time, I couldn't shed a single tear. Once most of the relatives and friends had arrived, it was time for the show to begin. I had just picked up a tissue soaked in essential balm to wipe my eyes when tears instantly gushed out, and I wept bitterly while pouring out my sorrow. Ziqiang, how am I supposed to go on without you? I regret it so much. I knew you were rushing back to see Mom because of her kidney failure, yet I let you drive alone. I should have gone with you. Relatives chimed in with words of comfort, urging me not to grieve too much, but I shook my head. No, it's all my fault. When Mom called to inform us about the illness, I should have gone too. I shouldn't have stayed away just because Mom and my sister don't like me and always scold me. The relatives exchanged glances, seemingly not expecting Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong to be such people behind their backs. What nonsense are you talking? Chen Zihong's voice came from the doorway, accompanied by Fang Qingying. The two knew Chen Ziqiang's death was fake, so they weren't overly grief-stricken. Additionally, Fang Qingying wasn't feeling well, which caused their late arrival. Little did they expect to hear me spreading malicious rumors the moment they arrived. Fang Qingying trembled as she walked up to me. Ziqiang clearly got into the accident because he went to buy strawberries for you. It's your gluttony that killed Ziqiang. How dare you shift all the blame onto me? If Ziqiang knew about this in the afterlife, how heartbroken he would be. Chen Zihong snorted coldly. It's you. You always loved ordering my brother around to buy this and that. Strawberries were your favorite fruit too. Right before the accident, he was calling me, saying he was buying fruit for you. Sobbing, I put on a guilty expression. Mom, if saying this makes you feel better, I can accept your version of events. Her words were practically meaningless, especially with my pitiful appearance making everyone more likely to overthink. Chen Zihong rushed forward and slapped me. What kind of innocent act are you putting on here? My brother died because of you. After taking the slap, I stood up abruptly with an expression of unbearable humiliation. Then what do you want me to do? Ziqiang fell off the cliff on the only road leading to you all. Why insist on mentioning strawberries? What strawberries are even in season now? Even if there were, you wouldn't need to go up a mountain for them. Any supermarket would have them. I was stating facts. But in my past life, I was too grief-stricken to think much about it. I paused for a moment before continuing. Besides, you and Mom never told me about her illness. If it wasn't Ziqiang who informed me, then who else could it have been? I've already been willing to take responsibility for Ziqiang's death on your behalf. What more do you want from me? Do you want me to die alongside Ziqiang? As I spoke, I ignored everyone's attempts to stop me, acting as if I was about to run into a wall. Ziqiang, walk slowly on the road to the underworld. Wait for me. Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong certainly couldn't let me run into the wall, especially since they were still counting on me to repay the money and, incidentally, to treat Fang Qingying's illness. The two of them were so anxious they were scratching their heads and ears. In the end, Fang Qingying had no choice but to admit, yes, it's true, Ziqiang got into the car accident because he came to see me. The responsibility lies with me. Chen Zihong also gritted his teeth and said, yes, it's our fault. The relatives were all pointing fingers at Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong, who didn't even dare to raise their heads. Only then did I calm down. Isn't this just emotional blackmail? Who can't do that? The funeral had just reached halfway when a lawyer in a suit appeared, holding some documents and asking, excuse me, who is Qin Ruolan? 5. Before I could speak, Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong shouted loudly, here, here, Qin Ruolan is here. I can't wait any longer. The lawyer confirmed my identity and directly produced Chen Ziqiang's will. According to Mr. Chen Ziqiang's will, all the deposits under his name are left to you. I lowered my head, holding the will. Such a paltry sum was hardly worth making a fuss over. My premarital assets far exceeded this amount. I glanced at the doorway, where numerous debt collectors had already gathered, all waiting for me to sign so they could demand payment. Fang Qingying grew impatient. Ruolan, hurry up and sign it. Once you've signed, Ziqiang can rest easy. Chen Zihong also nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, once you've signed, we can proceed with the funeral. But I shook my head. I can't accept it. Before his death, Ziqiang must have been most concerned about Mom and his sister. I'm willing to give up Ziqiang's inheritance and leave it for Mom's medical treatment. Before Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong could voice their objections, I continued. Moreover, when Ziqiang was alive, almost all his income went to supporting Mom and his sister. I believe if he were still here, he would undoubtedly want everything to be used for Mom's medical treatment. The relatives couldn't help but give me thumbs up. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, I signed the document relinquishing my inheritance rights. That's how the law works. Since Chen Ziqiang's debts weren't incurred for family expenses and I had no knowledge of them, by giving up the inheritance, I naturally wouldn't be responsible for Chen Ziqiang's debts. According to inheritance law, since I waived my right to inherit, the next in line would be Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. Naturally, they began deferring to each other, neither willing to accept it. However, the creditors couldn't wait any longer. Without even waiting for the two to sign, they barged in directly. Chen Ziqiang owes so much money. You two must repay it for me. 6. The two were immediately surrounded by the creditors. Fang Qingying quickly pointed at me. Make her pay back the money. She has money in a house. She's Chen Ziqiang's wife. I looked bewildered and grabbed the lawyer from earlier, asking, I waived my inheritance rights. Do I still need to repay the debts? The lawyer shook his head. No, you don't. I sighed. Mom, little sister, were you just trying to get me to sign the inheritance papers earlier because you already knew about these debts? I thought you were being kind-hearted, but I never expected you. I didn't continue speaking, but everyone already knew what I was about to say. Chen Zihong pushed the creditor aside and said arrogantly to me, this was always your joint debt, so of course you should pay it back. Besides, my brother was... Chen Zihong couldn't finish her sentence because her original line was supposed to be, besides, Chen Xiang died because of me. But after all the commotion I'd caused earlier, the cause of Chen Ziqiang's death had already been changed to something else. The lawyer timely intervened. Joint debts require both signatures and must be used for shared expenses to be valid. Currently, none of these IOUs bear Ms. Qin's name. Chen Zihong looked as if struck by lightning. She threw herself at my feet, grabbed my pant leg, and cried, Sister-in-law, Mom and I can't possibly come up with this much money to pay off the debt. Don't you have a house? Sell it and pay back part of the debt first. The audacity was truly astounding. I looked at her puzzled and asked, Little sister, don't you and Mom also live in a house? Its value should be higher than mine. Why not sell your own place instead? Fang Qingying didn't quite catch everything, but she heard enough about selling her house and immediately shrieked, No one is selling my house. Where would I live if it's sold? Do you expect me to end up on the streets? 7. No matter what the two said, the creditor remained unmoved, simply staring at them and demanding payment. The two also followed my lead, saying they wanted to renounce their inheritance rights. We don't want inheritance rights, we're just like Qin Ruolan. That's right, we were also unaware of our brother's loan. We have no obligation to repay it. Unfortunately, it's useless. During the funeral preparations, I investigated and found out that many of Chen Ziqiang's loans were guaranteed by Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. In fact, the two even took substantial commissions from these loans. This is why, in my previous life, they faked their deaths and emotionally blackmailed me into repaying the debts, because if I didn't repay them, they would have been the ones forced to pay. The Chen family played me for a fool. They sold me out, and I was still counting the money for them, when the two claimed ignorance. The creditors directly produced screenshots and transaction records of Chen Ziqiang transferring money to Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. Their faces turned pale. How could you possibly have gotten these so quickly? Following normal procedures would take forever, but if I were to help them, it'd be done in minutes. I stood aside, wiping my eyes swollen from mentholatum. Mom, little sister, how could you enable Ziqiang to take out loans like this? Now there's nothing I can do to help. You'll have to repay this money yourselves. A voice emerged from the crowd. Qin Ruolan, you're utterly vicious. No wonder Ziqiang would rather keep a mistress and father illegitimate children outside than stay with you. Everyone turned to look, but no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find the person who had spoken. What, Ziqiang actually betrayed me? Unable to bear this blow, I rolled my eyes and fainted on the spot. 8. By the time I woke up, everything had already been settled, with me, this foolish scapegoat, out of the picture. Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong were forced to sign and acknowledge these debts. They had considered asking relatives to persuade me, but the mistress scandal at the funeral made everyone believe that staying out of this family's affairs was the best choice for me. So not only did no one come to speak up for them, but many even took the opportunity to kick them while they were down. A few days later, as I was packing my things at home, Chen Zihong knocked on my door. I didn't give her a warm welcome. Considering how brutally she had emotionally blackmailed me in my past life, Chen Zihong acted just as before, walking in and sitting directly on the sofa without even taking off her shoes. As you know, Mom has kidney failure. Now both Mom and I have been kicked out of the house. Mom is in the hospital, and I have nowhere to stay, so I plan to live here. I gave a non-committal ham and said, fine, anyway, I've already sold this place. When the new landlord comes in a few days, whether they'll let you stay or not is none of my business. Perhaps my timid demeanor made Chen Zihong think I had reverted to being the same pushover as before. She snorted coldly. That's more like it. Let me tell you, Mom already had kidney failure, and after all the commotion at the funeral, her condition has worsened. You and Mom share the same blood type. If you have any conscience left, you should go get tested for compatibility. I suddenly burst out laughing. Chen Zihong looked at me suspiciously. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at how foolish you are. Your brother is having an affair outside, and you and your mother have been tormenting me in every way. Why on earth would you think I'd be willing to help you? Chen Zihong stared at me as if she'd seen a ghost. You're twisting the facts. I made a shushing gesture. Stop talking nonsense. It's clear who's twisting the truth. Whether your brother went to buy strawberries for me or deliberately went up the mountain just to fall to his death, I believe both you and your mother know the answer. 9. Chen Zihong had no idea how to refute me, nor did she dare to offend me casually. After all, she still needed me to have a sudden attack of conscience to help them repay the debt. Even if I didn't pay, she could still cling to staying at my place, making me cater to her every need: food, clothing, shelter, and even her daily necessities. As for whether to donate a kidney to Fang Qingying, she's so selfish that she obviously couldn't care less. Having figured this out, she shot me a glare and went straight into the guest room. Once Chen Zihong entered the guest room, I stopped tidying up. Since the lottery had already been drawn and I was now a multimillionaire, I no longer needed these trivial things. I picked up my bag, turned around, and left home, blocking all contact with Chen Zihong and Fang Qingying. They wouldn't dare to escalate the situation too much. Fearing that someone might uncover Chen Ziqiang's faked death, I claimed my prize, bought a luxurious villa, and moved right in, doing everything I could to make up for the suffering of my past life. My days were spent in absolute indulgence. However, Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong weren't so fortunate. According to what the private investigator told me, Fang Qingying's condition deteriorated rapidly and she has now fallen into a coma. However, because there's no money and Chen Zihong refuses to discharge her, she can only lie in the hospital corridor, waiting it out. Meanwhile, Chen Zihong was also evicted by the new landlord of my old house, and the situation escalated dramatically, nearly landing her in the police station. She made a phone call filled with accusations and sobs before reluctantly leaving in the end. But I know these are just the beginning. There will be even more troublesome matters awaiting me, as if echoing my thoughts. Early that morning, the housekeeper brought in 3 guests. It was Chen Zihong and someone dressed like a lawyer, and standing beside them was none other than Chen Ziqiang, who had risen from the dead. I curled the corner of my lips. Chen Ziqiang, you've finally shown up. All my efforts to spread the word about my wealth haven't been in vain. 10. The moment Chen Ziqiang saw me, he immediately knelt down. He clung tightly to my thigh, crying uncontrollably with tears and snot streaming down his face. I steadied my emotions and asked, Ziqiang, didn't you already die? Chen Ziqiang wiped his nose haphazardly on my silk dress and said, I'm sorry, my dear, it was a moment of foolishness that made me choose to fake my death, but I regretted it almost immediately. I missed you too much, so I came back. After speaking, Chen Ziqiang tugged at Chen Zihong's skirt, Chen Zihong had been staring at the villa ever since she entered and only snapped out of it when tugged. "Sister-in-law," she said. "My brother truly loves you, and Mom and I really adore you too. Please come back home soon. Besides, seeing how nice this house is now, paying off my brother's debts must be easy for you, right?" I nodded. "Yes, a debt of millions is nothing to me now. Funny how they say promotion, wealth, and a dead wife, but for me, it's dead husband and newfound wealth. Seems like all the good luck has come my way, but I won't repay it for you, because we currently have no legal relationship anymore." Upon hearing this, Chen Ziqiang quickly stood up. "Attorney Liu, please explain this to my wife." Attorney Liu cleared his throat. "Actually, Ms. Qin, according to Article 51 of the Civil Code, the marital relationship of a person declared deceased is terminated from the date the declaration of death takes effect. If the declaration of death is revoked, the marital relationship is automatically restored from the date the revocation takes effect. Therefore, Mr. Chen Ziqiang's marriage to you has now been reinstated." I covered my mouth in surprise and let out an audible gasp. Chen Ziqiang and Chen Zihong were delighted to see me at a loss, but their expressions changed immediately when I spoke my next words. 11. Ziqiang, after your death, I discovered that what I thought was a perfect marriage was actually full of deception and infidelity, so after you passed away, I chose to remarry. I smiled and said, "After all, the best way to move on from a relationship is to start a new one." Chen Ziqiang shook his head with a dark expression and said, "I don't believe it, you must be lying to me." I waved my hand, signaling the nanny to call my husband Huang Yunan, who was already waiting at the stairwell with our marriage certificate in hand. Before the nanny could even go upstairs, he strode down with his long legs. He proudly showed the marriage certificate to Chen Ziqiang like presenting a treasure, even cheerfully shaking his hand. "Brother Qiong, it's truly a miracle. Someone coming back from the dead. What a pity though, since Ruolan and I are already married, so your marital relationship is now void." Lawyer Liu nodded awkwardly. "Yes, if someone remarries, the previous marriage is legally terminated." Chen Ziqiang and Chen Zihong were stunned. They had thought that after returning, if they begged me a little, I would soften and obediently return the money. Even if I didn't, as long as they could continue the marriage, they could still lord it over my family and act tyrannically, but they could never have imagined that I would get married so quickly. Chen Ziqiang said sarcastically, "I loved you so much and obeyed your every wish. How could you marry someone else before my body was even cold?" Before I could speak, Huang Yunan looked as if he had seen a ghost. "What, you're a ghost?" Chen Ziqiang couldn't find words to refute, but Chen Zihong gritted her teeth. "You bitch. You must have cheated long ago to move on so seamlessly." She gave Huang Yunan a flattering glance, smoothed her hair, and said, "Handsome, you've been fooled by her. She's only after your money. You should get divorced as soon as possible." 12. Huang Yunan waved his hand. "You've misunderstood. This house isn't mine, it's Ruolan's." "What? How is that possible?" Chen Ziqiang and Chen Zihong exclaimed in unison. Seeing their expressions, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "That's right, after you died, I won the lottery, so I came into money." I sighed. "It's fate, really. If you hadn't faked your death in a moment of foolishness, this life would all be yours now. I could have easily paid off all your debts too." I pointed at the Land Rover parked in the yard. "I remember you saying this car was every man's dream car. You could have lived that dream." If one could see Chen Ziqiang and Chen Zihong's intestines at this moment, they would undoubtedly be green with envy. Chen Ziqiang realized he couldn't gain any advantage from me through legal means. His eyes darted around as he said, "Darling, I know my sins are grave and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But we've known each other for 10 years and been married for 3. There must still be some affection between us. I'm not asking you to repay my debts now, I'm just begging you to save my mother. After all, your mother is also my mother. The woman you've called Mom for 3 years is about to pass away. Can you really bear to be so heartless?" I nodded. "Yes, I can. I've always remembered what your mother told me. Don't think that just because you married into this family, you're truly one of the Chens. Don't act recklessly here. I'm not your birth mother, and I have no reason to indulge you." Chen Ziqiang and Chen Zihong were about to speak again when I shushed them. "Honestly, if you were truly filial, you'd be better off spending time comforting your dying mother right now. or hurry up and get tested for organ compatibility. After all, transplants between relatives have much higher success rates. With that, I smiled and had the housekeeper show them out. 13. The three of us walked out the door, and Huang Yunan gave me a thumbs up. Ruolan, how did you know Chen Ziqiang would definitely come back to you? Huang Yunan's demeanor was completely different from before as she lounged seductively on the sofa. I took off my dress, leaving only my undershirt, and squeezed onto the sofa with Huang Yunan. I know Chen Ziqiang too well. Whether Chen Zihong died or Fang Qingying died, he would never have come back. He'd definitely choose to take the money and elope with his mistress. But if that happened, he could never make up for the harm he caused me. So I deliberately spread rumors that I'd struck it rich while hiding my marital status, waiting for him to walk right into my trap. Huang Yunan leaned on my shoulder and said, "Oh my God, Ruolan, you're amazing. If I didn't have a boyfriend, I'd really want to marry you." I rolled my eyes. Huang Yunan is my classmate and neighbor, and we've always had a great relationship, especially since we even share the same sexual orientation, which is precisely why he agreed immediately when I proposed marriage. Because I had long known about the legal regulation lawyer Liu mentioned, if I didn't completely break free from Chen Ziqiang, he would become a ticking bomb hanging over my head, and I would never be at peace. Huang Yunan snatched the grapes from my hand and said, "Wait, but what if Chen Ziqiang runs away again?" I gestured toward my phone with my chin. "Don't worry, I've notified every single creditor." Thinking of this, I smiled and said, "Not only that, but I also found someone to give him advice on how to make money." Huang Yunan shook her head and said, "Ruolan, you're terrifying. I wouldn't dare divorce you. I'm afraid you'd ruin me." Yes, I've been clever since childhood, never forgetting the slightest grievance. It was only in my past life that love clouded my judgment, blinding me and making me deaf, allowing those three ungrateful wolves to manipulate me so easily. 14. Under the kind advice of well-meaning people. Chen Ziqiang didn't disappear again. Instead, he and Chen Zihong gathered their numerous creditors for a meeting. What exactly was said or done, I'm not sure. All I know is that two people went in, but only one came out. Chen Zihong was nowhere to be found. In my previous life, after Chen Ziqiang went missing, Chen Zihong nearly tortured me to death. After I donated a kidney to Fang Qingying, when I was in extreme discomfort, she not only ignored me but also demanded that I do her laundry and cooking, even forcing me to attend to the finicky and troublesome Fang Qingying late at night. I suffered multiple infections and nearly died. Even after my recovery, knowing full well about the family's massive debts, Chen Zihong still demanded that I buy her expensive cosmetics and luxury goods. I did resist and refuse, but whenever I did, she would immediately hit me. My body was weak, and I was no match for her. She also said I deserved all this, and that Chen Ziqiang would surely have bought it for her if it weren't for me. When I refused, claiming I had no money, Chen Zihong even suggested I go out and sell my body. "You're pretty and young anyway. Might as well make some money while you can. Mom and I are counting on your earnings to get by." So my hatred for Chen Ziqiang pales in comparison to what I feel toward Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. After all, he vanished abruptly, while the ones who truly tormented and hurt me were always Fang Qingying and Chen Zihong. But Fang Qingying herself no longer had kidneys to donate. She was already on the verge of collapse. I didn't even need to lift a finger. That's why I think it's quite fitting to use Chen Zihong's own idea against her now. But one Chen Zihong was clearly not enough for Chen Ziqiang to catch his breath for long. Soon, the kind-hearted person gave Chen Ziqiang another idea. 15. Within a few days, I received an invitation from Chen Ziqiang. Of course, I didn't want to go. But Chen Ziqiang left me a message saying, "If you don't come, I'll ruin your reputation." It was only then that I went to meet him out of fear. Chen Ziqiang arranged to meet me outdoors, in a desolate area surrounded mostly by shrubs with hardly anyone around. He demanded that I throw my bag far away, place my phone on the table, and only after confirming that I had no recording devices on me or in my shoes did he allow me to sit down. I frowned, looking at Chen Ziqiang with disdain. "What do you want with me?" Chen Ziqiang didn't speak but instead handed me some evidence and call recordings. I stared in confusion, my expression growing increasingly grim. Chen Ziqiang seemed to find this immensely satisfying and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Did you really think I was so stupid that I couldn't come up with any solutions? This so-called evidence could prove that I was fully aware of Chen Ziqiang's debt situation, including his faked death. And even suggested that my lottery winnings were purchased by Chen Ziqiang. Trembling with anger, I said, "These are all fake. I had no idea about any of this. These recordings and chat logs aren't mine at all." Chen Ziqiang nodded emphatically. "Right, fake. The recording is AI generated. But as long as I post these things online and put my dying mother on livestream, everyone will believe me, not you. After all, who would choose to believe someone as fickle as you? Who remarried before her husband was even dead? Once everyone believes me, I'll take you to court. With such a huge scandal and your suspicious behavior, the worst the court will do is rule to split the debt and your lottery winnings equally. By then, you'll be broke and your reputation ruined. That handsome husband of yours will surely divorce you." 16. I struggled to calm my emotions. "So, what do you want?" Seeing that I had taken the bait, Chen Ziqiang said, 2 million. 1 million is for paying off debts, and the other million is for living expenses. Listen, don't rush to refuse. What I'm asking isn't much at all, and if you hadn't refused to give me money earlier, my sister wouldn't have what? I pressed. Chen Ziqiang avoided answering directly and instead said, "Tell me, what's the fastest way for a woman to make money?" But then again, this was her duty all along. As my sister, she had to pay this price. I seemed startled by his words and fell silent for a moment. "I can give you the money, but my funds are tied up in the bank. I can't come up with that much right away. I can only give you 1 million for now." Chen Ziqiang hadn't expected things to go so smoothly and grew overconfident. "You have to give me everything within a month." I nodded in agreement but demanded that he delete the evidence right in front of me. Chen Ziqiang called me an idiot and said, "How can I delete anything without getting the money? Hurry up and pay me, then I'll delete it." But I still wasn't reassured. Amid my hesitation and inner conflict, Chen Ziqiang proactively wrote me an agreement, promising to delete everything and never bother me again once he got the money. Holding the agreement, I finally felt at ease and transferred 1 million to Chen Ziqiang on the spot. After Chen Ziqiang left with the money, a man dressed in green ghillie suit crawled out of the bushes, grumbling. He took off the suit and handed me his phone with an action camera. "Ruolan, I did all this for you. You have to go shopping with me properly," he said. I nodded and blew him a kiss. "But first, we need to report this to the police." 17. Playing the role of a woman who had just been blackmailed. I was completely drained and practically clung to Huang Yunan. Huang Yunan dramatically pleaded with the officer to ensure justice was served for me. He had a silver tongue and explained the matter clearly in just a few words. I always knew Chen Ziqiang was up to no good, so I deliberately followed my wife. Unexpectedly, I happened to capture the entire extortion process. The evidence was irrefutable, and the amount involved was excessively large. The police immediately froze Chen Ziqiang's bank account used for receiving the money and swiftly took him into custody. When arrested by the police, he still looked bewildered. "I didn't break any laws. I just owe money. I'm just a deadbeat." Only after arriving at the police station did he realize I was the one who reported him, fueling his resentment even more. "How could you go back on your word? How could you do this to me? This isn't extortion. She's my wife. Her money is mine." Huang Yunan seized the moment to interject. "Officer, he was already dead. I married my wife after his death, so their marriage was long invalidated." The police wanted me to say a few words too. But I suddenly went crazy and shouted, "Don't sell me. I don't want the money anymore. He'll sell me to Africa to be. I didn't finish my sentence. However, the police sensed the scent of a major case. Under their repeated reassurances, I reluctantly revealed that Chen Zihon had already been sold to Africa. I didn't know at first, but today he spoke ambiguously, which made me uneasy. So, I hired a private detective to investigate, and this is what they found. I sobbed and threw myself into Huang Yunan's arms, while Chen Ziqiang clenched his teeth helplessly, powerless to do anything. I roughly calculated that the extortion amount was huge and the circumstances were severe. It could result in at least 5 years in prison. As for human trafficking, that's even worse. Probably around 10 years or more, 18, due to the high volume of cases and the time required for evidence investigation. Fang Qingying couldn't wait for Chen Ziqiang's sentencing and died alone in her rented apartment. It was said that her body wasn't discovered until it began to emit a foul odor, prompting the neighbor's dog to bark day and night. In the end, no one came forward to claim her body, as a kind-hearted soul. I sent her to the crematorium, brought her ashes home, and then promptly flushed them all down the drain. A shitty person deserves nothing better than to keep company with shit. During these 6 months, the police collaborated with law enforcement agencies from multiple countries in an attempt to rescue Chen Zihong and the mistress. The mistress, heavily pregnant and with a vacant stare, was rescued and brought back to the country. It was said she was riddled with illnesses, and no one knew who the father of her unborn child was. But at least she survived. Chen Zihong wasn't as fortunate. Rumor has it that shortly after going abroad, she was tortured to death due to her excessively violent temper. One wonders if, in her final moments, she resented her beloved brother. 6 months later, Chen Ziqiang was sentenced. But the situation was more severe than I had imagined. Not only had he sent Chen Zihong away, but he had also disposed of his mistress abroad. Therefore, with multiple crimes combined, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Handsome, fair-skinned, and good-looking. It goes without saying that he wouldn't have an easy time behind bars, not to mention his crimes were particularly heinous. 19. 2 more years passed, and with my great vengeance fulfilled and life being too blissful, I kindly went to visit Chen Ziqiang. Just 2 years apart, Chen Ziqiang looked even more haggard and aged than he had over a decade later in my previous life. He had become so thin his face was barely recognizable, covered in wounds large and small, his wrists scarred, mostly from bite marks, and missing a piece of his ear. It seemed life had indeed treated him harshly. Chen Ziqiang stared at me with eyes full of despair. "What are you here for? To laugh at me?" I shook my head. "I came to tell you that your mother died at home. I went to collect her remains, but I accidentally dropped her ashes into the toilet." Chen Ziqiang showed little reaction. "Oh, I see," I hummed in agreement. "Then let me tell you something you don't know. For example, the person who gave you advice and led you to make these mistakes. Do you know who it is?" Chen Ziqiang finally reacted, looking at me sharply. "How did you know someone gave me advice? Was it you? You did this on purpose, didn't you?" I smiled but didn't answer. Instead, I winked at him, making it clear. "Yes, you're absolutely right." He couldn't help but sneer. "Do you think your life is so happy? Let me tell you. I've already found out. Your husband is a damn homosexual. He's only after your money, and sooner or later, he'll abandon you and leave you with diseases." I answered Chen Ziqiang the same way. "I know. Our marriage was fake from the start. I did it specifically because I knew you weren't dead. As for the property, you don't need to worry. We signed a prenuptial agreement." Upon hearing this, Chen Ziqiang spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. This was something Fang Qingying taught me. To kill not just the body but also the spirit. It really works. And damn, does it feel good. The end. That concludes the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. I was live streaming antique appraisals when I connected with an outdoor fishing streamer. He pulled a pearl from the fish's belly and asked me if it was valuable. I was shocked. "This is a living corpse heavenly pearl. Throw it back into the water quickly." The barrage comments all cursed me for being greedy. But they didn't know. 10,000 corpses form a single pearl. Without this pearl's suppression, tens of thousands of floating corpses in the water will come ashore tonight. 1. My name is Murong Yu, a student majoring in archaeology at Jing University, and also a famous live-streaming influencer. In my free time, I do live-streamed treasure appraisals online to earn some extra money for living expenses. That day, as usual, I opened my live stream, when suddenly an excited face popped up right in front of the camera. "Hey streamer, quick, take a look. What do you think this is?" I was startled. The person opposite moved a bit further from the camera, and I finally got a clear view. It was a middle-aged man with a scruffy beard. His skin was dark, his nose bridge high, and in one hand he was holding a bright green bead. "Look quick, isn't this made of jade?" The man smiled, his eyes almost brighter than the jade bead in his hand. The barrage immediately lit up. "Ah, isn't that my Shengji? Right, wasn't Shengji supposed to be wild fishing? How did he end up here treasure appraising? Haha, the person upstairs knows Brother Sheng. I just came from his live stream. Brother Sheng struck it rich. He found a jade bead inside a fish he caught, and judging by its quality, it's no ordinary piece. Wow, what incredible luck. Turns out the man opposite is named Li Dasheng, a well-known outdoor streamer. He's passionate about wild fishing and always analyzes factors like weather and water conditions with fellow anglers at fishing spots. Brother Sheng's theoretical knowledge is incredibly professional, but his luck is terrible. Everyone says he goes all out with his techniques, yet the biggest fish he's ever caught weighed just 2.5 ounces. To date, his most impressive catch was spending 4 hours to reel in 3 tiny whitebaits. People laughed at him, but he never got discouraged, always smiling cheerfully. And his live stream remained highly popular. No wonder Brother Sheng couldn't catch fish before. Turns out all his good luck was saved up for this. This bead, it's icy imperial jade. Worth at least over 100,000. Don't talk nonsense. Upstairs, that's no small bead. His is as big as a pigeon's egg. Cut it open, and you could make 2 ring faces. It's gotta be worth at least a few million. 2. Watching the chat scroll by, Brother Sheng narrowed his eyes, scratched his head, and grinned from ear to ear. Ha ha ha, no, I'd have to ask Anka Murong to help me check the specific price. Brother Sheng placed the emerald bead in his palm and aimed it at the camera. The outdoor sunlight was excellent, casting a glossy sheen on the emerald green bead's surface. Upon closer inspection, tiny particles could be seen inside the bead. However, its internal structure was extremely dense, and the base was very clean. Put some water in your palm and place the bead in the water for me to see. Brother Sheng obediently scooped a handful of water into his palm. The emerald green bead dissolved almost invisibly upon contact. Resembling transparent jelly were it not for its vibrant hue, I couldn't help but marvel. Incredible. The older generation used to describe glass-grade jadeite this way. Toss it into clear water and it disappears from sight, but color can overshadow clarity. The hue in jadeite blocks light transmission. Your emerald's rare fluorescence suggests this isn't ordinary ice-grade full-green jade, but something approaching glass-grade, truly priceless. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, really? Then streamer. How much is this worth? Brother Sheng couldn't hold back his laughter, and the audience watching the live stream was going crazy with envy. I'm a jade merchant. Brother Sheng, I'll take this bead. Final offer, 880,000. Phut, who are you trying to fool with that price? Brother Sheng, I'll double his offer, 1.68 million. That's sincere enough. Right, give me your address, and I'll come find you right away. The jewelry merchant started raising prices to buy pearls, and Sheng's grin never faded. I also watched with envy, staring for a while, when suddenly something felt off. In the center of the pearl, an extremely fine white thread flashed by. My eyes widened abruptly. Countless extremely fine white threads were wriggling within the bead, as if alive, a fully green bead with moving white threads. A legend flashed through my mind, and my face instantly turned pale. 3. Wait, Shengji, where exactly did you catch this fish? Brother Sheng was gleefully holding up the bead to the camera to show off when he heard my question. He took a few steps back to let me see the entire background. I'm at Fuxian Lake. What's up, Sister Murong? You wanna come try your luck here too? Ha 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 ha. Fuxian Lake is Yunnan's deepest freshwater lake, with an average depth of 90 meters and reaching over 150 meters at its deepest point, locally. It bears another sensational name, the Thousand-Year Corpse Vault. The waters of Fuxian Lake are exceptionally clear, appearing shallow at first glance, but the lake's edges feature dramatic elevation drops. Swimmers often drown here during corpse recovery operations. An ancient city was discovered at the bottom of the lake. Later, CCTV organized a team to conduct 3 underwater investigations, although no underwater footage was publicly released. They confirmed the discovery of extensive ancient city walls beneath the water. The local legends are even more bizarre. It's said that there are numerous standing corpses underwater, male bodies leaning forward and female corpses tilting backward, swaying with the currents, creating a truly terrifying sight. If this were anywhere else, I might have thought I was mistaken, but since this bead is in Fuxian Lake, the legend is almost certainly true. I sighed. Brother Sheng, listen to me. This isn't a jade bead, it's a living corpse heavenly pearl. This is an extremely rare thing. Out of 10,000 corpses, only one pearl forms. When corpses are trapped together, one among them absorbs the corpse energy and resentment from the others, giving birth to this pearl. With it here, it can absorb and suppress the endless flow of corpse energy. If the pearl is removed for even 12 hours, all those corpses underwater will rise and turn into revenants. Once that happens, there'll be no stopping it. Quick, throw the pearl back. What, a living corpse heavenly pearl? That sounds terrifying. Brother Sheng, hurry and throw it back. Yes, I've watched Anka Murong's previous streams. She's really amazing. You should listen to her. Quickly throw the bead back. My longtime fans all urged Brother Sheng to throw the bead away immediately, and Brother Sheng's smile froze on his face. For, what nonsense, hearing someone offer 1.68 million and telling them to throw the bead into the lake. Anka, are you jealous or what? Exactly, how absurd, what kind of zombie talk is this? Makes no sense at all. You guys upstairs don't get it. I'm a local, and there really are legends of floating corpses in Fuxian Lake. Yeah. Imagine tens of thousands of corpses crawling ashore. What kind of scene would that be? Just thinking about it terrifies me. Money is trivial compared to life. LOL. Since when is 1.68 million trivial? Could you even earn $1 million in your lifetime? The barrage erupted into arguments. Brother Sheng looked awkward, clutching the bead with a distant gaze. Sister Murong, you say this is a living corpse heavenly pearl. Do you have any other evidence? You can't just expect me to throw 1.68 million into the water based on your word alone, I said with a stern face. Do you know why it's called a living corpse heavenly pearl? It's alive, but anything it touches turns into a corpse. That fish you caught, wasn't it already dead? Brother Sheng's pupils contracted slightly, and someone immediately responded in the bullet comments. Yes, I watched the live stream just now. It was indeed a dead fish. Its eyes were rolled back, and half of its gills were rotten. A dead fish hooked right in the mouth. Time to pack up and leave. Isn't that the rule in your fishing world? Every angler knows that a perfect hook means the fishhook catches the fish right in the center of its upper jaw. If you reel in a dead fish with a perfect hook, it suggests something underwater actively hooked the fish onto your line. An ominous sign. You must leave the waters immediately, or something bad might happen. I won't fish with this then. But that doesn't prove anything, does it? Brother Sheng clearly wasn't willing to give up the bead, so I patiently continued to persuade him. Brother Sheng, anything touched by a corpse pearl will turn into a corpse. Not just fish. If you keep holding it, you won't live past tomorrow. Look at your palm. Hasn't the skin already turned pale and wrinkled? Once midnight passes, you'll be no different from those floating corpses at the bottom of the water. 5. Brother Sheng glanced down at his palm and was startled, but quickly regained his composure. My hand's been soaking in water all this time. Isn't it normal for it to wrinkle? Exactly. Brother Sheng, don't pay her any mind. This streamer is just jealous and can't stand seeing others make money. Look, I won't beat around the bush. Flat rate of 2 million. You're at Fuxian Lake, right? I can fly there in an hour. Wait for me. Brother Sheng remained silent, but judging by his expression, he was clearly tempted beyond measure. I panicked. You really can't take this bead, Shengji. My signal's bad. What did you say? The video's freezing. The next second, Shengji actually ended the live stream directly. I tried calling back, but no one answered, pissing me off so much I couldn't help but curse. It's over, Qiao Moyu. Something terrible has happened. Qiao Moyu is my friend and also the sole contemporary heir of the Earthmaster lineage. Earthmasters anciently referred broadly to feng shui practitioners, but later specifically denoted feng shui masters capable of celestial observation. Qiao Moyu excels in astrological tomb location and can exorcise ghosts and capture demons. She's the most formidable person I've ever met. At this moment, she's sitting in the courtyard, gazing eagerly as my grandfather brings out a large pot of lamb spine stew. Hehe, sect leader Qiao. This meat's been stewing for 2 hours. Doesn't it smell delicious? Qiao Moyu sniffed the air and rubbed her hands together excitedly. It smells absolutely amazing. Seeing me rush out of the room with a frantic expression, Qiao Moyu's face turned pale. What are you doing? Nothing can stop me from eating this lamb spine hot pot. Stop eating. Living corpse heavenly pearls, tens of thousands of floating corpses. We need to buy plane tickets to Yunnan immediately. 6. I grabbed Qiao Moyu's arm. but Grandpa slapped my hand away. What's the rush, you crazy girl, always making such a fuss? What living corpse heavenly pearls, as I explained what had just happened. I lowered my head to open my phone and book a flight. The nearest plane was departing in an hour and a half, and rushing there now would be just perfect. While I was buying the ticket, Grandpa suddenly burst into laughter. Ghost's living corpse heavenly pearl, ha 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 ha. That was all made up by your great-grandfather to fool people. How can a college student like you believe everything? He laughed while patting Xiao Moyu on the shoulder. My silly daughter is hilarious, isn't she? Ha ha ha, sect leader Xiao. Why aren't you laughing? Xiao Moyu's face darkened. Guess, Grandpa, or are you just not the laughing type? Xiao Moyu let out a forced heh laugh, walked over to pick up the pot of lamb spine, her face full of anxiety. Hurry up, what are you waiting for? Jiang Haoyan happens to be parking in the parking lot. Hurry up and grab your ID cards, a porcelain plate as big as a wash basin. Xiao Moyu didn't even mind the heat, holding it with both hands and running swiftly. Not spilling a single drop of the brimming broth, Grandpa couldn't stop praising her. TSK, look at her. Every move is pure skill. Have you practiced the 8-section brigade like I told you? First build up your vitality, then once you've got the basics down, you can learn more, Grandpa. Stop talking nonsense. You go get your ID card, and I'll pack our things. I turned and ran upstairs. Grandpa stood frozen for a few seconds before snapping out of it and clapping his hands together. Oh my dear heavens, could that living corpse heavenly pearl be real? No way, we've got to take the Chenkuan mirror with us. 7. By the time we packed up our things and ran to the parking lot, Jiang Haoyan had already backed the car out. This way, Xiao Moyu rolled down the window from the back seat, holding a large porcelain plate in one hand and gnawing on a lamb bone with the other, thoroughly enjoying herself. I've been observing the stars at night recently. 4 planets aligning, ah. I didn't expect it to come true so quickly. I asked curiously, what's a 4-star alignment? The 4 stars refer to Saturn, the Moon, Venus, and Jupiter gathering together, forming a straight line low in the southwestern sky. When these 4 stars align, it signifies great turmoil. Evil spirits rise, noblemen worry, and petty men scatter. It's an extremely ominous omen. That sounds so unlucky. Sect leader Qiao, does that mean something bad will happen today? I never thought the living corpse heavenly pearl could actually exist. I always thought it was fake. Grandpa shoved me aside with his hip and quickly took the seat next to Xiao Moyu, leaving me no choice but to sit in the passenger seat. It's not as simple as you think. The living corpse heavenly pearl isn't a bead, but a corpse. What? Grandpa stared wide-eyed in shock. For real? Among 10,000 corpses, one king must emerge. One corpse absorbs the resentment and baleful energy of the others, evolving into the legendary corpse king. But now, by chance, this 10,000 corpses pearl has been born, with one pearl and one king contending. The corpse king has already merged with this pearl. It's underwater. While the other corpses supply it with corpse energy, they also suppress it. Now that it's ashore, once it regains its true form after midnight, its strength won't be inferior to the ghost mother. Upon hearing this, Jiang Haoyan, who was driving, immediately stepped on the accelerator, causing the car to suddenly speed up. Xiao Moyu leaned forward abruptly and, seizing the moment, pushed the porcelain plate in her hands forward, neatly catching the spilled soup. What great skills! Xiaoye, look at this. Just look at this. Grandpa clapped along enthusiastically beside us, and I couldn't help but ask curiously, is she the legendary ghost mother who devours Japanese invaders? Xiao Moyu didn't respond. Focusing intently on eating the lamb spine in her hands, Jiang Haoyan clearly harbored deep psychological trauma regarding the ghost mother. He stepped on the accelerator without a word, speeding the car away swiftly. Yes, Grandfather sighed, reached into the porcelain plate, and picked up a piece of lamb spine to gnaw on. TSK, this is the flavor indeed. Sect leader Qiao, no wonder you couldn't bear to part with this big pot even on your journey. Such delicious lamb spine. Only someone with your discerning taste could appreciate it. With this single remark flattering both men, Grandfather stroked his beard, brimming with pride and satisfaction. 8. Fuxian Lake is the 3rd largest lake in Yunnan. Covering an area of 212 square kilometers, its overall shape resembles a long gourd. located between Chengjiang City, Jiangchuan District, and Huaning County. We only knew Brother Sheng was at Fuxian Lake, but didn't know the exact location. After landing at Kunming Airport, when the driver asked where we were going, we all froze in unison. Fortunately, I had enabled screen recording during my live stream. I opened my phone and scrolled to the last screenshot. On the screen, Brother Sheng grinned widely, with a blurry mountain landscape behind him, seemingly with a few white leaves resting on his forehead. My fingers slipped, zooming in on the photo. This looks like a windmill. Master, are there windmills by Fuxian Lake? The driver leaned over to take a look. Oh, that's Modu Mountain, on the southern shore of Fuxian Lake. The terrain there is quite high, but the scenery is just average. Tourists usually go to the Ruby Beach in Yushi City. Are you heading there? Truth be told, I couldn't even be sure if Brother Sheng was still by the lake. The jeweler said he'd take a 1-hour flight to get here, and he arrived earlier than us. The two might have contacted each other privately and already changed locations for the deal. But Xiao Moyu insisted that I go to the lakeside. You don't understand corpse pearls. Xiao Moyu pointed at the glaring sun overhead. Right now, yang energy is at its peak. That pearl still relies on the corpse energy at the bottom of the water and can't stray too far from the shore, even if he wants to make a deal. He'll have to wait until Yushua, when the sun is about to set. Yushua refers to the period between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. I checked my phone. It was exactly 3:15 p.m. Leaving us nearly 2 hours to wait, Xiao Moyu asked me and Grandpa to go to the lakeside first to find someone, while she headed to the city to prepare a large array of ritual tools. Remember, you must find Sheng Ji before 5 o'clock and secure the bead, then wait for me to arrive. The safety and stable lives of the people in Yunnan are in your hands. Xiao Moyu patted Grandpa on the shoulder, and his face immediately lit up with a healthy glow. Don't worry, sect leader Xiao. Leave this matter to me. 9. We took a taxi to the vicinity of Modu Mountain and began searching for people along the lakeshore. The weather was beautiful today. Not a cloud in sight, the deep blue sky reflected perfectly in the lake water, blending water and sky into one breathtaking scene. Fuxian Lake has always been a famous tourist destination, with a constant stream of visitors along its shores. Every few steps, we could see people taking photos or spreading out picnic blankets. I widened my eyes and stared intently at the crowd with my grandfather, searching as we walked for nearly half an hour. It was almost 4:30, and there were even more visitors by the lake, but we still hadn't caught a glimpse of Sheng. I rubbed my sore eyes, feeling extremely anxious. Grandpa, maybe we should split up and search separately. I hadn't even finished speaking when I saw Grandpa gasp sharply, his face turning deathly pale in an instant. Crazy girl, run. Before I could react, Grandpa had already taken off sprinting ahead. Shocked, I instinctively followed suit. Has the corpse pearl transformed? You there in front, stop. A sharp shout came from behind, making Grandpa shudder and run even faster. As I turned my head to look, a dark figure descended from the sky and pounced on me. Ah! I was knocked heavily to the ground with a cry of pain as someone twisted my arms behind my back, pinning me firmly to the earth. Fortunately, the grass was soft, so the fall didn't hurt too much. I turned my head in alarm, only to find myself torn between laughter and tears. Officer, it's all a misunderstanding. In that short time, another young officer in uniform had already caught up and grabbed Grandpa. He sneered, pressing down on Grandpa's shoulder. Try running now. I was specially recruited as an athlete. 10. The young man challenged Grandpa. I saw you two sneaking around early in the morning, staring at people. What did you steal? The policeman behind me was slightly older, pulling me up while impatiently furrowing his thick brows. Xiao Ju, don't waste words with them. Take them back to the station first and question them there. I panicked. If we went to the police station now, it would take at least an hour before we could return, and by then, it would be too late. The opportunity would be gone. Officer, it's really a misunderstanding. We're not thieves. We didn't do anything. My grandfather used to be a tomb raider. Back when I was in middle school, Beijing suddenly launched a crackdown targeting antique dealers like him who handled black market goods. He lived like a startled bird every day, sleeping with one eye open at night, ready to bolt at the slightest sound. Grandpa said he wasn't actually afraid of going to prison himself. His main concern was that I was still young, and with no other adults at home, he didn't know how I'd survive if he got arrested. Despite all his vigilance and precautions, he was eventually caught while secretly picking me up from school, even after serving several years in prison. He could never shake the habit of wanting to run at the sight of police. I stomped my feet anxiously, looking at Grandpa with frustration. Grandpa, I'm really fed up with you. When will you ever change this bad habit of yours? You're always causing delays. Only then did Grandpa snap out of it, slapping his forehead in annoyance. Oh dear, my apologies. Force of habit, force of habit. Ah, this body is just too nimble, reactions too quick. How annoying. He forced an ingratiating smile, explained his situation, and then pleaded. We father and son still have things to do. We really can't go to the station. Officer, could you let me off this time? My granddaughter is a student at Peking University, the best university. How could she be a thief? Xiaoye, show them your student ID. I took out my student ID from my bag, and Officer Zhu glanced at it, his expression softening slightly. Brother Zhao, look at this. Brother Zhao still wore a stern expression. TCH, grave robber, retired now. Then why are you so guilty-looking? Who are you trying to fool? You're not here for some shady deal again. Are you? 11. Brother Zhao waved his hand impatiently. Xiao Ju, you just graduated from the police academy, so learn from this. Fake student IDs are everywhere. People in this line of work love using these identities to lower people's guard. Don't waste your breath arguing with them. Take them back to the station first. Without another word, he grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. I looked up and saw a police car parked far ahead. Xiao Ju shrugged. Gentlemen, after you. Grandpa forced a smile and said a few more pleasantries, but this Brother Zhao remained utterly unmoved. I panicked. Grandpa, what should we do? As the two of us were pushed forward, moving farther and farther from the lakeshore, Grandpa suddenly cried out ouch, and grabbed Officer Zhao's hand. Ah, seems I couldn't hide anything from the officer's sharp eyes. I confess, I was indeed here to trade illegal goods. I stared wide-eyed in shock. Grandpa, what are you talking about? Officer, I've confessed everything. Does that count as meritorious service? The other party is a major tomb raiding gang. They just dug up something valuable today and arranged to meet me here for the deal. If I take you to him, does that count as meritorious service? Brother Zhao finally smiled, the crow's feet at the corners of his eyes relaxing. You old fox, you're finally getting with the program. Grandpa winked at me. His name is Sheng Ji, wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and a baseball cap, pretending to be fishing by this lake. It dawned on me. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. Grandpa's life wisdom far surpasses mine. I quickly nodded in agreement. Yes, that's him, Grandpa. But isn't this against the rules? What are we supposed to do next? Grandpa glared. Screw those damn rules. He was the one who asked for it first. Are we just supposed to take the fall? 12. Our back and forth act worked. Officer Zhao didn't suspect a thing. Officer Zhu even slapped his forehead and recalled, a fisherman. Zhao, didn't we just run into one up ahead, arguing with some fat guy? They looked pretty shady. It seems there is such a person. Officer Zhao pondered for a moment, then took out a pair of handcuffs from his pocket, cuffed Grandpa to the bench nearby, and directed me. Murongyu. Right, Xiao Ju, take off your uniform jacket and escort her to the rendezvous point. After saying this, he also removed his jacket and draped it over Grandpa's hands, preparing to blend in as a passerby following behind us. I'm a bit worried about Grandpa, but then again, if we go straight to subdue Sheng now and wait for Qiao Moyu to deal with that bead, Grandpa should be fine staying here. Xiao Ju led me forward, and I anxiously glanced back at Grandpa. He was sitting calmly on a chair with his legs crossed, a police uniform draped over his arm, even greeting passers-by. Hey, little chubby, come sit for a while. Chat. The person across hurriedly waved their hand in refusal. No, officer, you're busy. Hey, not really busy. As long as you're living peacefully, I'm relieved. Officer Ju from next door burst out laughing. Your grandpa's quite a character. I also breathed a sigh of relief. That's just Grandpa's personality. No matter where he goes, he never shortchanges himself. We walked a few hundred meters along the lakeshore as the sun gradually set in the west. While fiery sunset clouds burned across half the sky, everyone raised their phones to take photos, marveling at the stunning scenery of Fuxian Lake. There are so many people, Xiaoju nodded in agreement. It's the weekend, and sunsets like this don't come often. Once everyone posts on their social media, more people will be coming soon. I was filled with anxiety. If things could be resolved smoothly, it would be fine, but if not, the more people there were, the greater the casualties would be. 13. Take a look. Is that him up ahead? Officer Ju stopped walking and mysteriously pulled me behind the crowd. I looked up and saw the middle-aged man by the lakeside pressing down his hat brim. It was Sheng Ji. Holy shit, this is really weird. What the hell is going on? Brother Sheng was so anxious that sweat poured down his face. He wiped his forehead while bending down to pick up the beads scattered on the ground. Standing opposite him was a short, stocky young man wearing a bright green jade Buddha pendant around his neck. Likely the jewelry dealer here for the transaction. Now I get it. Tell me the truth. Did you never intend to do business with me in the first place? Are you stalling for time to arrange another buyer? The jeweler crossed his arms, glaring angrily at Brother Sheng, who anxiously tried to explain. Boss Wang, what are you talking about? You saw it yourself. I had just handed the pearl to you when it slipped and fell to the ground. For the past 10 minutes, it keeps disappearing from my pocket one moment and falling into the grass the next, as if it had grown legs and could fly. I swear it's like dealing with a ghost. Speaking of ghosts, Brother Sheng widened his eyes and swallowed nervously in fear. Ghosts, cough cough. Do you think this pearl really has something wrong with it? Maybe I should throw it back. I can't enjoy wealth if I'm not alive to spend it. Brother Sheng finally picked up the pearl and pretended to throw it into the lake, but Boss Wang quickly grabbed his arm. Don't do that, I was just joking with you. Ha ha ha. Brother Sheng also smiled smugly, feinted with his arm, and tightly clenched the bead in his hand. The two huddled together again and resumed whispering. Yeah, it's him. Damn it, didn't expect him to secretly arrange another buyer behind our backs, Officer Ju. We've caught him red-handed now. Can't let him get away. Alright, stay put here. Officer Ju circled around to the front and gestured to Officer Chen in the distance. The two officers moved in from opposite directions, closing in on Brother Sheng. 14. Brother Sheng was easily subdued by the two men but struggled desperately. What the hell? Who are you guys? Robbing me in broad daylight. Someone call the police. Help, robbery, robbery. I am the police. You're the damn artifact smuggler. Crying thief when you're the thief yourself. Officer Chen slapped his police badge hard against the man's face. The bystanders, seeing this, immediately grew excited and formed a circle to watch the commotion. I pushed through the crowd and squeezed inside. Officer, that bead in his hand is the evidence. There's proof inside it. Let me show you. As I spoke, I tried to pry open Sheng Ji's clenched palm. Sheng Ji tightened his fists and dodged behind Officer Chen, veins throbbing angrily at his temples. It's you, Murongyu. How can there be someone like you in this world? So jealous that you'd actually bring the police to frame me. Officer, she's falsely accusing me. She's just jealous and can't stand to see others succeed. I have evidence too. I'll show you the video. Brother Sheng was filled with righteous indignation. And Boss Wang also joined in, protesting his innocence. The two recounted the incident and then opened their phones to show Officer Chen the livestream video from earlier. When Officer Chen saw me saying it was a living corpse Z bead and urging Shengji to immediately throw the bead into the water, his temple twitched violently. Ah, so you're Shengji. I just finished watching the livestream and was looking for you by the lake. Yeah, we've been searching for you for 2 whole hours. Ha ha ha. Shengji, show us that living corpse bead of yours. The bystanders joined in loudly, egging them on, after understanding the whole story. Officer Chen put down the phone and glared at me fiercely. What's wrong with you, little girl? Filing a false police report is illegal. Thinking about how she'd been tricked by me and Grandpa into coming to arrest Sheng, Officer Chen was even more furious. You're coming with me to the police station right now. I can't go. There's no time left. The floating corpse is about to wash ashore. I was so frantic that sweat poured down my forehead, bending over to dodge Officer Chen's outstretched hand. I lunged at Sheng Ji, knocking him to the ground. Yet, Sheng Ji still clenched that bead tightly in his palm. Without hesitation, I lowered my head and sank my teeth fiercely into Shengji's wrist. Ah! Shengji let out a piercing scream and instinctively loosened his grip, causing the emerald green bead to roll onto the ground. Just as I was about to pick it up, a sudden flash caught my eye. Officer Ju had already snatched the bead into his hand. "Give me the beads," I lunged onto Xiao Ju's back. With one hand, he twisted my wrist and effortlessly flipped me over his shoulder, slamming me hard onto the grass. 15. The onlookers burst into roaring laughter, some even holding up their phones to livestream. Ha ha ha, instant karma for jealousy. Murongyu is really insane. Daring to snatch someone's belongings right in front of the police. Some people are just like that. If they can't have something, they want to destroy it. It's utterly ridiculous. The chatter of the crowd drifted into my ears as I lay on the ground, one hand clutching my waist, my vision spinning with stars, my forehead drenched in cold sweat. Time is running out. I can't afford to delay any longer. I struggled to get up, turned around, and pointed at the lake in horror. Look, there's a floating corpse coming ashore. My original intention was just to bluff Officer Ju, taking advantage of everyone's diverted attention to snatch back the bead he was holding. But the next second, I froze in place, my heart pounding wildly, my face instantly turning deathly pale. In my line of sight, there was a dusty figure with stiff limbs slowly crawling out of the water. I looked up at the half-set sun, the sky ablaze with sunset hues, an eerie expanse of blood red. So it's already 5 o'clock, time flies. Heh, little girl, this trick of yours won't work on us. Officer Ju laughed so hard his shoulders shook, gripping the beads tightly in his hand as he swiftly turned to glance toward the lakeshore. What if I looked? I'll look again. Wait, hey, who are you? Swimming is prohibited in Fuxian Lake. With a stern expression, Officer Ju shouted sharply at the person. The crowd also voiced their criticisms. Yeah, who is this guy? So rude. Look at how dirty his clothes are. Could he actually be a floating corpse? Ha 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 ha. I grabbed Officer Ju's sleeve, desperately making one last attempt. That really is a floating corpse. You need to evacuate the crowd immediately and throw the bead back into the water. Before Officer Ju could respond, Officer Chen beside him snorted coldly. Are you telling us how to do our jobs? 16. The floating corpse drifted closer and closer, its head hanging low. Clad in bizarrely styled clothing, its skin seemed coated with a layer of oil, blending seamlessly with the fabric, while viscous droplets dripped steadily downward. My heart skipped a beat. This was actually a wax corpse. A so-called wax corpse forms when a deceased person remains in a special environment, typically submerged in water or buried in moisture-rich soil. The body's fat transforms into wax, seeping out to create this phenomenon. Wax corpses neither decay nor decompose, their skin covered in a milky white waxy substance that, at first glance, resembles plaster sculptures. Hey man, someone just called you a floating corpse. Ha ha ha, being mistaken for a dead body. What are your thoughts on that? The young guy who was live streaming me with his phone earlier giggled and stepped forward, holding his fist like a microphone. The wax corpse slowly raised its head. I gasped in shock. It seemed like the flowing water had distorted its features during the waxification process. Its facial features had completely melted out of place, its eyeballs almost shifted to the sides of its cheeks like a lizard's, and its nose protruded awkwardly from the top of its head, nostrils flaring outward. The most terrifying part was its mouth. It had no upper lip, exposing the entire gum line. Holy crap! The young man let out a scream and leaped backward. But it was too late. The wax corpse lunged forward and sank its teeth into his neck. Ah, a monster! Help! Save me! The crowd instantly descended into chaos, with people screaming and running in all directions. Several younger children were knocked to the ground in the crush, crying out in distress. Hurry! Give me the bead! I lunged toward Officer Ju to snatch the corpse-reviving bead. This time, he didn't resist, standing there slack-jawed as I took the bead from him. Officer Chen snapped out of his daze and rushed forward, trying to pull the wax-covered corpse off the person. But as soon as he reached out, the corpse slipped through his grasp like an eel, impossible to hold on to. The young man pinned to the ground had his carotid artery bitten through, blood spurting out as his limbs flailed wildly in convulsions. 17. Get him into the water, now! I frantically waved my arms and shouted. Officer Chen gritted his teeth and delivered a powerful kick to the wax corpse's shoulder, sending it sprawling. The wax corpse struggled to rise again, still lunging forward when Officer Ju joined the fray. Bracing one hand on Officer Chen's shoulder, he launched himself into a mid-air sweep, delivering a massive kick that sent the wax corpse flying. The wax corpse fell back into the water with a loud plop, splashing water everywhere. Nice shot. I clapped my hands excitedly, only to realize the pearl was still in my grasp. Quickly taking a running start, I swung my arm high, sending the pearl arcing through the air in a perfect parabola before it dropped into the lake. My 2 million. Brother Sheng let out a wail but didn't dare run to the lakeside to look, stomping his feet angrily where he stood. Officer, you bear witness for me. Make her compensate me 2 million. Enough. Compensate what? Shut your mouth. Officer Chen wiped the cold sweat from his face, looking at me with lingering fear. Will that thing come up again? It shouldn't. I couldn't speak anymore, my mouth hanging wide open, my jaw refusing to obey. Behind Officer Chen, the lake's surface began bubbling violently like boiling water, countless bubbles bursting to reveal gray humanoid figures within. Gulp. I swallowed hard and slowly stepped backward. Murongyu, you're pulling this trick again. Don't you dare scare me. Officer Chen glanced swiftly behind him and gasped sharply. Hurry, Xiaoju, evacuate the crowd first. The 2 police officers were still very responsible. Even at such a critical moment, they didn't think about fleeing themselves. Instead, they split up and ran frantically along the lakeshore, shouting loudly to urge people to leave as they ran. However, the wax corpses attacks were happening right in our area. With Fuxian Lake's long shoreline, people in other corners had no idea what was going on. They continued their usual activities and even curiously approached the lakeside to get a closer look at the grey figures. Officer Chen and his partner had taken off their police uniforms and were only in plain clothes, so many people didn't take their warnings seriously. It wasn't until the wax corpses that had come ashore began pouncing on the crowd, knocking people down one after another and tearing at them with their teeth, that everyone finally realized what was happening. Screaming, people fled in all directions, and the lakeshore descended into utter chaos. 18. Along the long shoreline, wax corpses were emerging from the water continuously, and the sounds of struggle and snarling could be heard everywhere. My palms were sweaty, my forehead drenched in perspiration. We're done for, Grandpa. What are we supposed to do now? Wait, Grandpa. My heart felt as if it was suddenly clenched by a giant hand. My heartbeat stopped abruptly, and intense fear spread throughout my body. Grandpa was still handcuffed to the chair, completely unable to evade the wax corpse's attack. I turned and ran toward the bench, stumbling along, my legs so weak they could barely support me. When I reached the bench, I could see from afar that Grandpa was propping himself up with one hand on the bench, jumping back and forth over it like a game of leapfrog, while a wax corpse circled around him. Grandpa. I sped up and rushed over. Grandpa turned his head and was overjoyed. He pushed off the chair again, barely dodging the wax corpse's attack. He gasped for breath, his chest heaving violently. Phew, you crazy girl. Phew, where's the key? I stopped in my tracks and said awkwardly, I didn't bring it. Useless. Then what are you here for? To collect my corpse? I might as well have given birth to a wooden club instead of you. Grandpa was furious. I glanced around and spotted an overturned folding chair. I rushed over and smashed it violently onto the wax corpse, but this wax corpse was different from the previous ones. No matter how hard I struck it, it showed no reaction. Instead, its eyes turned blood red, and it roared as it lunged at me. I turned and ran, only to have a copper coin fly straight toward me after a few steps. Duck. The coin embedded itself into the wax corpse's forehead, causing it to collapse heavily to the ground. Overwhelmed with excitement, I rushed over and hugged Xiao Moyu's arm. Woo-woo, my dear, you're finally back. What happened? Didn't you find Brother Sheng? 19. Xiao Moyu walked over, casually pulled out a piece of wire to unlock Grandpa's chains. As I explained the situation to her, her face stiffened. Oh no. It's no use throwing the bead back now. Once the hour of you arrives, Yang declines while Yin flourishes, and the wax corpses, without the bead to absorb their corpse energy, can no longer be controlled. The bead has been exposed to sunlight for too long. and its yin energy can't regenerate quickly enough to restrain those corpses. She unlocked the handcuffs, formed a hand seal with her fingers, and muttered to herself, "You belongs to yin metal, metal governs slaughter, yang fire overcomes metal. Got it. I'll set up a Shijin array, place the bead at its focal point to rapidly stimulate its yin energy. You go into the water and retrieve the bead." I widened my eyes in disbelief. "What?" Xiao Moyu patiently explained. "Gen represents a great mountain. The Shijin array is a formation designed to dilute the power of malevolent spirits in the mountains. I'll find the array's focal point to extract the yin energy, gathering the underground yin energy at the focal point. That pearl will start working soon." I waved my hands, my face full of terror. "You want me to go into the water to retrieve the pearl?" "Yes, that pearl has passed through your hands and has a connection with you. Once you're in the water, you'll be able to find it by following your intuition." Enough with the nonsense. Luckily, I had the foresight to bring everything we need. "I'll have Jiang Haoyan bring over the diving gear. Get ready." Grandpa stood by, hesitating to speak. "Master Qiao, our Yaya can't do it." Qiao Muyu widened her eyes. "Then why don't you go with her?" "Ahem, don't worry, girl, going down will be good practice for your courage. I've calculated your fortune. You'll live to be 80. As for me, this old man's bones would fall apart if I went into the water." I was on the verge of tears. I really didn't want to go into the water. But I also felt that the situation had escalated to this point partly because of me. Biting my lip, my body stiffened as I mechanically put on the diving gear. Xiao Moyu bustled about, wielding a peachwood sword and a bundle of command flags, clearing wax corpses while finding moments to set up formations. 20. Shallow waters appear clear, deep waters turn green. By the shore of Fuxian Lake, the water is so transparent that the pebbles beneath are clearly visible, yet just a meter or two further out, the lake's color abruptly shifts into a gemstone-like blue-green. After suiting up, I plunged into the water. The wetsuit shielded me from the lake's chill, yet threads of cold still seeped through the fabric. Descending several meters, the deeper I went, the colder it became, until my body trembled uncontrollably. At this depth, light still penetrated the water, but the further down I went, the darker it became, a pitch-black abyss that seemed to harbor nameless monsters lurking in its depths. I suppressed the fear in my heart, trying my best to calm myself down. Closing my eyes, I focused on sensing the connection with that bead. Soon, I faintly heard a gentle female voice calling me from afar. "Murongyu, Murongyu, come here." Taking a deep breath, I swam toward the direction of the voice. I dove deep, and darkness quickly enveloped my vision. Only the headlamp illuminated a small patch ahead of me. Ahead lay some scattered massive boulders, and not far off stood a towering platform, majestic like a pyramid rising from the water's depths, except its top was flat. It seems the folk tales were true. There really is an ancient city beneath these waters. I circled halfway around the platform, sensing the pearl's location, when suddenly, a white shadow flickered at the corner of my eye. Startled, I quickly turned to look, but the dark waters revealed nothing, as if what I'd seen was merely a trick of the mind. "It's okay, the floating corpses have already washed ashore. The water is safe down there." I kept comforting myself as I continued circling the platform, and soon, I discovered an opening. Peering inside, I saw a narrow passageway leading into the interior of the platform. The ancient tomb on the grassland last time left me with an intense fear of such cramped, enclosed spaces. Instinctively, I didn't want to go in, but that pearl was inside. "Lu Xiaokue, come on, you can do this." I gritted my teeth, kicked my legs, and squeezed inside. Just as most of my body had entered, a sudden strong force pulled from behind. I felt someone grab my ankle. Horrified, I instinctively struggled desperately, flailing my arms and kicking my legs while glancing backward. That's when I noticed numerous water weeds tangled around my foot at the cave entrance. 21. Relieved, I turned around to untangle the weeds and continued swimming inward. Not long after entering the passage, the space suddenly opened up. The interior of the platform was hollow, and there lay the pearl, resting quietly on the ground, emitting a faint glow under the beam of the searchlight. I didn't expect things to go so smoothly. I dove down and picked up the bead. Just then, a ghastly pale hand suddenly reached out from the darkness. pressing firmly onto the back of my hand. I looked up and was scared out of my wits. Facing me was a female wax corpse. Her facial features were intact, her pitch-black eyes fixedly staring at me. With an eerie smile hanging at the corner of her mouth, I threw a punch straight at her face, then grabbed the bead and swam forward desperately. Just as I rushed into the passage, I collided head-on with another pale face. Its mouth and nose twisted, eyes clustered unnaturally in the center. "Shit!" Terrified, I screamed. Releasing a huge bubble from my mouth, I could only turn back to face the female wax corpse. At least she looked somewhat more attractive and less terrifying, fortunately. The wax corpse moved stiffly, and its speed underwater was significantly slower than on land. Even someone with my level of physical fitness wasn't at a disadvantage against it. However, I could barely handle one at a time. When the second wax corpse lunged at me, I kicked hard and used the momentum to push myself in the opposite direction. Diving into the passageway, I swam desperately, my arms churning like windmill blades. The passage wasn't long, I should have been out by now. But no matter how far I swam, the narrow corridor stretched endlessly ahead. Only then did I belatedly realize that I might have taken the wrong path. There was more than one exit inside this towering structure. The corridor ahead took a turn, and to the left, unexpectedly, was a stone chamber. It wasn't large, only about 10 square meters. As I swam into the chamber and swept my searchlight around, my heart instantly clenched in fear. Standing in the chamber were 7 or 8 wax-coated corpses, their bodies upright, suspended in the water and swaying gently with the current. This is it, with so many of them, I'm afraid my life is about to end here. A tremendous fear swept through my entire body, leaving my limbs numb and my eyes brimming with tears. I stood frozen in place for several minutes. Unexpectedly, the wax-covered corpses didn't attack me, which allowed me to regain some strength, driven by curiosity. I cautiously approached the bodies to take a closer look. When I shone my light closer, I realized these wax corpses were different from those on the shore. Most of their flesh had been gnawed away, leaving only ghastly white bones behind. Some were missing arms or legs, their limbs incomplete. What could have bitten them like this? The thought flashed through my mind, and I silently cursed. Could there be piranhas in these waters? I immediately turned around and swam outward, but it was already too late. A massive dark shadow surged from the darkness and rammed violently into my calf. 22. A sharp pain shot through my leg. Looking down, I saw a chunk of flesh had been torn from my calf. A pitch-black, monstrous fish, about 1 meter long, was glaring at me with predatory intent, with its broad lips and 2 long whiskers at the corners of its mouth. This was a massive catfish. Catfish are carnivorous and highly aggressive. Having feasted on so many corpses here, this fish now saw me as prey. I was instantly furious. I couldn't handle Chiao Moyu, couldn't deal with the wax-covered corpses, and now even a fish was bullying me. I reached down to my thigh and felt for a dagger. One I'd deliberately strapped there before diving for self-defense. As the catfish charged at me again, I twisted my body and thrust the knife downward with all my might. Predictably, I missed, instead. Its tail whipped around and struck my lower back with brutal force, sending numbness radiating through my entire spine. I was in pain and furious, my temper flaring up as I charged back recklessly, wildly swinging and stabbing with the dagger. It seemed I had hit something, because blood quickly spread through the water. My mind was a mess, driven purely by instinctive frenzy. By the time I calmed down and looked again, the fish had already vanished without a trace. I circled around the stone chamber and discovered another hole in the wall at the innermost side. Going back the same way would mean fighting those 2 wax corpses again, so I might as well enter here and see if there's another exit. Without much thought, I squeezed into the hole and swam forward for a stretch. Fortunately, I bet right and managed to emerge from the stone platform. Unfortunately, before me was a large group of silver carp, some leisurely swaying in the water, others burying half their bodies in the muddy bottom. It seemed I had stumbled into their lair. Both sides froze for a second before several carp swiftly charged toward me. With no will to fight, I desperately swam upward toward the lake's surface. My back was slammed with loud bangs, and the bright light on the water's surface grew closer and closer. Finally, I burst out of the water, tore off my mask, and gasped for air. "Grandpa, save me." There are fish biting me, you're so useless. Just a few fish. Wait, Master Qiao, save me, there's a shark in this lake, you look like a shark to me. Qiao Moyu rolled her eyes and casually tossed a few talismans onto the lake's surface. With a boom, a series of lightning flashes streaked across, leaving half of my body numb. 23. I mustered all my strength to swim back to shore, collapsing onto the bank while gasping for breath. Qiao Moyu took the pearl from my hand, wrapped it in a talisman, and placed it beneath a large tree ahead. She recited a long incantation, and soon I felt a chilling wind rise all around. The temperature dropping several degrees abruptly. The wax corpses also stopped attacking people, instead freezing in place as countless white threads emerged from their bodies, connecting to that celestial pearl. Slowly, one by one, all the wax corpses turned around and walked to the lakeshore, then plunged into the lake like dumplings dropping into boiling water with loud splashes. The people on the shore all stopped what they were doing, staring at this scene in shock. Holy shit! This master is really amazing. I thought Murongyu was full of it, but turns out he's actually got some skills. Yeah, what's wrong with that Sheng guy? He wouldn't listen to anyone's advice. And now look how many people have died. Sheng was also bitten by the wax corpses, lying pale-faced on the ground, barely clinging to life. Qiao Moyu retrieved the bead and let out a sigh of relief. Everyone, quickly call 120 for an ambulance. They've only been poisoned by corpse toxins and can still be saved. Only the young man from earlier couldn't be saved. He had his artery bitten through and died from excessive blood loss. After we finished cleaning up the scene, everyone thanked us profusely and even wanted to present us with commendation banners. This time, with so many witnesses to the wax corpses coming ashore and videos circulating everywhere online, there was simply no way to keep it under wraps. Qiao Moyu's expression was grave. The living corpse Heavenly Pearl wouldn't come ashore without reason. The Ghost Gate might be undergoing some changes. Are you going to Chongqing? Qiao Moyu shook her head and pointed into the distance. The Real Gate of Ghosts is at Mount Tai.